The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Good day and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. This is Dr. Brian Brown. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule on this Thursday to join us here. Have you ever wondered which diet is best for your lifestyle, your life, your longevity? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to be exploring the answer to that question and why research gets it wrong sometimes. Yep, you heard me right. Research actually gets this wrong more times than it gets it right. So several years ago, while I was attending a cardiovascular conference in Boston, Mass, I was in a breakout session with a small group of about 20 health professionals. Now, the speaker in this breakout session, at the very beginning of our time together, he took a poll from the audience members, and he wanted to know where we were from. So we were going around the room, and I actually happened to be the last one in the line going around the room. And when he got to me, he said, "Aha, Tennessee. Well, congratulations, you're at ground zero." Now, I knew instantly what he was talking about. You see, the southern United States, especially the southeastern United States, is truly ground zero for cardiovascular disease, stroke, heart attack, obesity, and diabetes. The South represents the stroke belt, the diabetes belt, the heart attack belt, and the cardiovascular disease belt. Interestingly, where I am in Tennessee, you might say we're the belt buckle. You only have to look at the Centers for Disease Control, CDC color map to see how serious it is. They use varying shades of red. So if you're kind of really light pink, you don't have that many problems with these types of issues. The more red it becomes, the worse it is. Unfortunately, where we are right here in the South and in Tennessee, it is so red that it is actually almost black when you look at the CDC color map. Now, clinically, it's what every health professional in the southern United States fights against on a daily basis. For the typical southerner, there just are too many added fats, fried foods, eggs, organ meats, processed meats, and sugar-sweetened beverages. Now, published just yesterday, literally June the 30th, in the Journal of the American Heart Association, researchers at the Division of Preventive Medicine at the University of Alabama in Birmingham published their findings from a multi-year study. Now, the study was titled Mediterranean Diet Score, Diet Patterns, and Risk for Sudden Cardiac Death in the Regards Study. Now, I'll publish the link to this study in the show notes, so you don't have to worry about that. You'll have the link to the exact study. But the Regards study was a nationwide study conducted with 21,000 study participants over at least a 10-year period. Some went 13.8 years, with follow-ups every 6 months to monitor where they were in their cardiovascular disease status, if they had any at all. Now, the Regards acronym stands for Reasons for Geographic and Racial Differences in Stroke. Now, participants in the study were 45 years of age and older. 56% were women, 33% were African American, and 56% lived in the southeastern United States. The goal of the study was to look at the association between cardiovascular disease and diet. They wanted to know which foods have a positive impact versus a negative impact on cardiovascular disease risk. Now, participants were broken down into 5 groups, and I thought the breakdown of how they created these groups was quite interesting. The first group was the convenience diet group. Now, these people were eating diets loaded heavily in pasta dishes, pizza, Mexican food, and Chinese food. So convenience foods. The next group was the plant-based pattern group. And they had high factor loading for vegetables and fruits and fruit juices and cereal and beans and fish and poultry and yogurt. The next group was the sweets pattern group. So if you're one of those sweet tooth people out there, this is your group. These are your people. The sweet pattern group was loaded heavily on sugars, desserts, chocolate, candy, sweetened breakfast foods. And yes, there are people that pretty well consists of their diet. That's all they eat. I can't explain it how they're walking around, but they're walking around. The next group was the Southern style pattern diet group. Now, this is loaded heavily on added fats, fried foods, eggs dishes, organ meats, processed meats, and sugar sweetened beverages. And then the last group, which I died out laughing when I heard this group because I know people like this. This is the alcohol and salad pattern group. And this group was loaded heavily in beer, wine, and liquor, green leafy vegetables, and tomatoes and salad dressing. And yes, unfortunately, I know people like that as well. You know, I've been practicing for 23 years, so I know people in all of these groups. Now, researchers included participants with and without a known history of coronary heart disease and diabetes at the beginning of the study. In fact, when you look at the actual study, you'll find that of the 21,000 participants, there were 3,856 participants who had known diabetes at the beginning of the study. And there were 3,585 participants who had known coronary heart disease at the beginning of the study. Now, here were the results. And granted, this is 21,000 people over a 10-year period. 400 sudden cardiac deaths occurred among 21,000 study participants in that 10-year period. And you may be thinking, okay, over a 10-year period, 400 sudden cardiac death events is kind of low for 21,000 people. Yeah, but it was statistically significant, and I'll tell you why here in just a minute. Now, the other piece of the result is the Southern style diet pattern, according to the researchers, was associated with higher risk for sudden cardiac death than any other category. So here are my insights about this study. It is true that most any person who eats a diet higher in saturated fats, fried foods, organ meats, processed foods, sugar sweetened beverages is probably not going to be in the best health, nor are they going to have the best health outcomes. And this is whether the health outcome is sudden cardiac death or coronary heart disease or diabetes. They're just not, it's not going to bode well for them to have that diet. However, this phenomena is not, hear me when I say it's not just isolated to the Southern United States or just the United States in general, for that matter. Studies from all over the world confirm the same things for these same results, these same outcomes for regions and cultures who eat diets similar to the quote unquote Southern style diet mentioned in the study. This study, in my opinion, had some major flaws, and I'm going to go through them one by one because I want you to understand that when studies are released, people put their heart and soul into it, and statistically, they try to make sense of it. Now, you've probably heard people, well, statisticians can manipulate numbers to mean anything that they want. Yeah, there's some truth to that, but there's also ethics involved in publishing studies. And the facts that they published in this study were true based on the design of the study. But a lot of times study designs are where the flaws occur, and it's not intentional. It's just one of those things that happens. And we as health professionals who read these studies, we have to be able to tease through these things so we understand where the flaws are, where the chinks in the armor are. So let me start with the first up. Those, remember I said the convenience diet group, these were the people that ate, pasta dishes and pizza and Mexican food and Chinese food. Those who were in that convenience diet category, this is going to blow your mind. They showed a decline in sudden cardiac death over a 10-year period, the more they ate those convenience diet foods. Now, that does a number on my head. I don't know if it does a number on your head, but you're thinking you're eating pizza and pasta and Mexican food and Chinese food all the time. And the more you eat it, the healthier it is for you. No, let's use our common sense here. Common sense tells us it's not healthy to eat that way. So then we have to ask the question, well, why did the results of this study show that a convenience diet has a lower incidence of sudden cardiac death? Well, that's one of the questions that the researchers had, and they don't know the answer to that. I think I have an answer for it. I'm going to give it to you in a minute, but let's go on to the next bullet point. So very similar to the convenience diet group, those people who had they ate primarily in the sweets diet category, meaning like breakfast foods, pastries, candy, chocolate, the whole 9 yards, just a very unhealthy, high sugary diet. Especially those who had a known history of coronary heart disease, they also had lower risk for sudden cardiac death the more sweets they ate. Now, that totally does a number on my head. Number one, we got the convenience diet group that's eating junk food all the time, and sudden cardiac death rate goes down over a 10-year period the more they eat that diet. The same thing happens for the sweets diet. And we know from Dr. Jason Fong's research out of Ontario, Canada, that the more concentrated sweets we eat, the more carbohydrates we eat, the more likely we are to develop type 2 diabetes. And the more likely we are to develop type 2 diabetes, the more likely we are to have coronary heart disease. And the list goes on and on and on. So we have to, again, use our common sense, but then we have to ask, why did this happen in the study? Well, things that don't make sense are making for a rather weak study, in my opinion. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Those who ate, get this, the plant-based diet showed an increase in risk in sudden cardiac death the more they ate the plant-based diet. Now, mind you, these changes in these first three categories, whether it's the convenience diet showed a decline, or the sweet diet showed a decline, or the plant-based diet showed an increase, it was small. It was a small increase or a small decline. And they said, well, it wasn't statistically significant. No, but the numbers are there. They showed a decline or an increase where it just contradicts what we think. And it doesn't make sense. And then they classified this plant-based diet style. Let me read what they included in there. So plant-based eating was considered vegetables, fruit juices, cereal, beans, fish, poultry, and yogurt. Most people who eat vegetarian or vegan, well, some vegetarians are going to eat yogurt, but vegans definitely aren't going to eat yogurt. They're not going to eat fish. They're not going to eat poultry. If you eat fish and you're a vegetarian, you're a pescatarian, okay? If you eat poultry, guess what? You're not a vegetarian or a vegan. I'm sorry, you're eating an animal. And if you eat eggs or anything like that, you're definitely not. I mean, come on, why did they even create this category of plant-based eating pattern and throw fish and poultry in there? It kind of sounds paleo keto to me. I mean, paleo Mediterranean to me, which is kind of what it is. But anyway, that was their designation. Again, it's a weakness in the study. I don't like that design. I don't like how they set that up. And if that wasn't enough, get this, the alcohol and salad diet group showed a decline in risk for sudden cardiac death the more they drank alcohol and the more salads they ate. So, God, I hope some of my patients don't read that, because that's all the justification they need to say, see, I told you that wine, that half a bottle of wine or that bottle of wine I have every night with that big salad at dinner is doing me good. No, it's not doing you good, because we check your liver enzymes and your liver enzymes are showing this is not good for your liver. So why do these things not make sense? They don't make sense because there's a phenomena going on there that this study didn't pull out that we could visibly see. So then we have to put our thinking cap on. We have to hypothesize, okay, what is actually going on behind the scenes? You know, the study did point out, and I will give it credit, the study boiled down to the higher the Mediterranean diet score, and I didn't go into that, but part of the study design is they gave people a questionnaire, and they were monitoring what they were eating over the course of time as they did their 6-month follow-ups. And they assigned, and this has been established in previous studies, a Mediterranean diet score, quote unquote. The higher the score, meaning the more likely, more foods you were eating on the Mediterranean diet list, the higher your score, the more it boded well for you in preventing sudden cardiac death. Now, I think researchers and health professionals in general do well to recommend a very positive eating style, such as the Mediterranean diet. But I'm not sure that this study supports that fact, especially when there were so many discrepancies among the other eating options. Now, I did a Google search with the caption or the title of this study just to see in less than 24 hours, because this came out late yesterday afternoon, guys, in less than 24 hours, how many news publications it showed up in across the world. Y'all, it showed up in the UK, Australia, New Zealand. It showed up in multiple hundreds of news outlets. It was picked up on just like that. And all the captions said, Southern eating style diet will kill you. Mediterranean diet will help you live longer. They'll help prevent sudden cardiac death. And I'm thinking, okay, that's a good message to put out there, but we need to tell the whole story. This study was flawed. And as such, because it has so many flaws, we have to say, okay, common sense tells me that a Mediterranean diet's good, but this study did not prove that, because there were way too many question marks. There were way too many flaws. And we then have to step back and say, okay, where can I get the information that I need? So, this study just told me, or tells me, that the focus of this particular study, the focus of this research, was pointed in the wrong direction. What do I mean by that? I've said it for years, and I'll continue to say it until I go to my grave. People, we have to look at the true root causes. And those true root causes can only be found in our genetics, more specifically in our epigenome, those things that can be modified. So let me show you what I'm talking about. One of the genetic profiles that I do with clients that I work with, either in the Gene Hack Accelerator or one-on-one in a Gene Hack Intensive, where I'm working one-on-one with a person over a longer period of time. One of those genetic profiles I do is the diet and exercise profile. Now we're currently revamping that with the lab. We're working out all the details on that as we speak, and it's going to be 100 times better than what it is now. And it's already amazing. But we are just constantly trying to improve things. But I'll share a couple of insights about genetics and your diet here in just a moment. Did you know that not everyone needs a Mediterranean diet? Yeah, it's a good diet to ascribe to, but not everybody needs that. That's crazy, right? I mean, if you look at the studies will flat blanketly say Southern diet bad, Mediterranean diet good. Okay, well, if I'm only comparing two things, and those are the only two things I'm looking at, or in this case, there were 5 different categories and they were all over the place. But if those are the only things I'm looking at, then it's the old adage: if if I'm a carpenter, everything looks like a hammer and a nail to me. Now you may be thinking, well, Brian, you're in the same boat. You're this genetics guy. No, I'm more than that. You know, first and foremost, you know, I'm board certified in family practice and in psychiatry. I think very holistically. I switched out of mainstream medicine into functional medicine over 12 years, almost 13 years ago, and have segued into genetics, but I still use all that functional medicine knowledge. I still use my holistic thinking that comes from psychiatry and family practice. And we start putting 2 and 2 together, and we start drawing correlations from all these other places. And genetics is where the true root cause lies. Okay. Some people are genetically predisposed to be vegetarian or vegan. Some people are genetically predisposed to be to eat a paleo lifestyle or a Mediterranean lifestyle or a calorie restricted lifestyle. And you may be thinking, oh, I hope that's not my genetics. No, there's a workaround around that. Or a ketogenic lifestyle or diet. The bottom line is you don't know until you test. Here's a another mantra that I speak until I'm blue in the face: test, don't guess. Test every single time. Don't guess about it, test it. Allow me to share some results from my personal genetic diet profile that helped me along my journey. A lot of you guys may not know, I used to be 390 pounds. I took it off the hard way, but I had a hard time keeping it off until I understood my genetics. And once I understood my genetics, it was like, wow, keeping the weight off is actually a breeze. So I want to go over just a few of these things from my own personal profile. So I'm going to put it up here. If I'm looking down, that's why I'm looking down, because I'm looking at my profile. But I just want to share a couple of things with you. So in my particular profile, there's a gene called the FABP2 gene. Now, I had a positive expression and a negative way for that gene, meaning that I hyper absorb fats from my food. Okay. So with that being said, a low fat, high protein diet, if we look at the research with that particular genetic profile, makes me 2.5 times more likely to lose weight if I can do a low fat, high protein diet. Now you think, okay, well, that knocks keto off the table because keto is a high fat diet. You're exactly right. So my other genes showed that keto diet's not for me. Okay. But you can kind of get an indication from the FABP2 gene that, okay, this person's not going to be a ketogenic person. All right. So definitely one of the reasons why keto diets did not do well for me: low fat, high protein. And when I do that, I am spot on every single time. And then there's another gene I want to talk to you about. It's called the FTO gene. Now, this is an interesting gene, and this gene is a low calorie intake. So yes, unfortunately, I have one of the calorie restriction genes. Another one is the leper gene, LEPR. I know that sounds crazy. It's the leper gene. But the leper gene is one of those genes that's a calorie restriction gene too. So I've kind of got a double whammy there. But I can eat low fat, high protein and stick with a Mediterranean or paleo diet and still keep it low calorie because I'm eating a lot of vegetables. I'm getting my fats from fish. I'm getting my fats from olive oil, avocado oil, those types of things. So when I say low fat, definitely low saturated fat. Your good fats, like your plant-based fats, your avocado oil, your olive oil, are really okay in this particular structure. But those are just 3 genes I wanted to share with you from my own personal profile that really was an eye-opener for me, because I had early on in my 20s, I'd had some results with the keto diet. And I kept trying to pursue that on and off and never had the same results again that I initially had. And as soon as I would come off, I would gain weight back, and it was this vicious roller coaster ride. So once I understood my genetics, it was like, oh, whoa, that makes total sense. So if I stay away from red meat, which is typically high in saturated fat, if I eat more poultry type stuff, I don't eat a lot of chicken, I eat a lot of fish and seafood. But if I stay on the poultry, fish, and seafood side, which is high protein, low fat, and I eat that Mediterranean paleo type of eating style, I do stellar. So those are just some of the things I wanted to share with you, so you kind of get an idea of how important it is to know your true root causes. And that leads me to this. Had the researchers in this study that was published yesterday, had they gone in and they did genetic profiling on every single one of these people, I think they would have found why they saw the discrepancies that they saw. It's because everybody genetically is different. And we can't explain why one person can eat this one particular food over here and not have any problems with it. And then another person over here eats the same types of food and they gain weight like crazy. It boils down to true root causes. It boils down to your genetics, and that's where it's at. So if you don't hear anything else from this, hear two things. The two things is that don't trust studies that are published in the media without doing your own homework. Look at the studies. Even if you don't completely understand them, find somebody that can kind of help you tease through it and won't just take the study at face value. And I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of health professionals that don't know how to read studies. It's really sad. I would say less than 15% of health professionals worldwide know how to truly read a study and look for the flaws. I spent a lot of time in my dissertation work looking, understanding how to read studies, because if you don't know how to read studies, you don't know how to put studies into the support of your argument for your dissertation work that actually is a viable argument, because there are a lot of weak studies out there. So you have to learn to pull those out and look at those weak studies and go, okay, this was a study that said this, but they didn't really prove it. And that's really important. And the number two thing is know that you have to start with your root causes. And for me personally, I believe that's genetics. Now, where does that leave functional medicine and Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, naturopathy, homeopathy? They all have a place here, every single one of them. But we need to lay the foundation of genetics, and then we build on top of that with these other disciplines so that we can hopefully avoid staying out of a broken medical system, if that makes sense. So if you're in a place where you're feeling like you're not operating at the highest and best performance level physically or emotionally, or you're just curious about understanding your true root causes, understanding your genetics, I'd love to talk to you. Reach out to me on direct message, Instagram, Facebook, at Dr. Brian G. Brown. Send me a message. I'll be glad to get back with you and help you in any way I can. Also this fall, I'll be launching another Gene Hack boot camp. And you'll want to get on the waiting list for that. Trust me, because spots are going to be limited for that class. So to get placed on the waiting list, go to drbriangBrown.com/gene hack and just follow the instructions there. In the Gene Hack Bootcamp, using my proprietary Genesis Zone method, I teach you how to know exactly where your imbalances are that are creating lower physical, emotional, and mental performance for you. And I show you exactly which genes need to be checked within each of those deficiency areas in order to propel you to higher levels of physical, mental, and emotional performance. Again, direct message me on Instagram or Facebook at Dr. Brian G. Brown, and go over to the website, drbriangBrown.com/gene hack, and reserve your spot for the next boot camp that's coming up this fall. So tune in next Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time, where I'll be sharing more insights about current research as it relates to optimizing your physical and emotional wellness journey. Most informed, most trusted, and most grateful that you spent this time with us today. Until next time, stay in the zone. I'm Dr. Brian Brown.